All right, I think most folks have their food by now. If you guys can hear me okay, can you give me a big O for O State, just to make sure, audio check, great. If you're online, if you could drop an O for O State in the chat, that would be awesome as well. I wanna make sure that you all can hear us, sweet, thank you so much for that. This is super exciting. Thank you all so much for being here to help kick off your Oklahoma State Data and Analytics Club. It's amazing to see all of you show up knowing that you don't have to be here to graduate, which leads me to believe that you're interested in this for some reason. Maybe you're looking for a career in data and analytics. Maybe you just want to use data to make better decisions in your day-to-day life. Perhaps you are here for the free Jesus chicken, as Trevor said. Certainly can't blame you all for that. But whatever the reason is, I'm glad that you're here. I hope you find the time to be valuable. I'm here because I love data. I love sharing my passion of data with others. I'm passionate about data because I believe that it helps us see the past and avoid mistakes that others have made. Data can help us see the world that's happening around us right now. In the business world, we call this operational reporting. And if we have the right organizational mindset, we'll talk about this a little bit later. If we have the right tools and technology, a little bit of ingenuity, we can really change the world and predict the future with data. For those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, my name's Tanner Ladd. My newest role is the Director of Customer Success for Data and Analytics Softwares at Nike. I started Nike to build out a data visualization COE, and we'll focus quite a bit on data visualization today. I do need to say I'm not here officially representing Nike today. I have to keep the corporate communications people all happy with me. But it is truly an honor to be here. A little bit about myself and background. My home is Oregon. I live on the Oregon coast in a tiny little town called Bay City. I live there with my 7-year-old son, James, my 13-year-old daughter, Isley, and my wife, Ashley. We like to spend as much time as we can outside, surfing, skiing, kayaking, doing all the fun things that the PNW has to offer. I did not grow up in Oregon. Like many of you here, I'm an Oklahoma guy. I grew up in Tonkawa, Oklahoma, in Kay County. Anyone here from Kay County? Show of hands. No one from Kay County. Makes me a little sad. That's okay, though. Small town Oklahoma guy. My first job was actually working with my grandma Betty in a food cart. Grandma Betty makes some pretty amazing food. So if you happen to be passing through Tonkawa, she's still rocking and rolling in the lunch wagon today. Stop by. She'll take good care of you. Grandma taught me a lot about working really hard and treating customers right. And I've tried to carry that throughout my career to the best of my ability. I attended college after Grandma kicked me out of the food cart in 2001 at Northern Oklahoma College, where I was pretty sure I wanted to be a physical therapist with maybe a flair for athletic training. I love sports. I knew I wasn't good enough to play in college. So I thought that that would be a good way to stay a little bit closer to sport. What I realized pretty quickly is that physical therapy and athletic training involves touching people quite a bit. Athletic training, especially taping ankles, I just found to be absolutely repulsive, and I knew that I would need to find a career that involved much less feet touching. So fortunately, the physical therapy clinic where I was working needed all the help they could get. In the business office, we were opening a brand new physical therapy clinic here in Stillwater, still here today on the corner of 6th and Washington, under new ownership, although. It gave me a lot of really good exposure and good experience running the business office for Northern Physical Therapy. I knew that I loved solving business problems. I was able to negotiate claims with insurance companies, schedule staff, schedule patients. No one asked me to touch feet, which was pretty cool. The problem here was growth, right? I didn't have a lot of opportunity to grow my career in a small mom and pop shop. So I set out for growth opportunity with Stillwater National Bank, now Simmons Bank. I entered Stillwater National Bank as an entry-level document scanner through some really great mentorship opportunities, one of those being your very own Jerry Rackley. Some new doors opened to me to more of a technical career path in data and analytics. I would follow one of my mentors from Stillwater National Bank over to Central Electric Cooperative. And this is really where I got the opportunity to dive headfirst into the deep end of the data pool. Working with a great team of software developers, we were crunching data from the power grid with the ultimate goal of helping our consumers make better decisions about how they're using energy, how they're impacting the earth. During my time at CREC, I found some tools and technologies that I was pretty confident would really disrupt the way that businesses were consuming information, right, and getting insights. And I knew that I wanted to bring my career closer to those tools and technologies. So I left the world of the electric cooperative to join a firm right here in Stillwater called Interworks. Interworks is a local firm, but they have a worldwide presence, offices in Europe and Australia. And there I got the opportunity to travel all over the US as well as internationally, helping customers build out their analytics capabilities. Eventually, I found my current home with my favorite client at Nike, and that's where I am today. So as you look through my career path and journey, you'll definitely not see a direct rise to a directorship role at Nike right out of the gates, right? I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do coming out of school, and that's okay. So shout out to all of you late bloomers. But what I want to share with you all today are a few of the, I'm going to borrow this term from this book by Chip and Dan Heath called Switch, right? It's about how we change things when making that change is really, really hard. And to do that, it typically requires a shift in our mindset, right? A new approach to problems, right? So today I'll take you guys through a few of the switches that help propel me to new levels in my career. And with that, we'll start with the first switch, which was the importance of mentorship. As I mentioned, at Stillwater National Bank, started as an entry-level document scanner. I knew I loved solving business problems, but I didn't really have a lot of direction in terms of where I wanted to go. I put in about a year of time and was getting great performance reviews, was working hard, but I wasn't moving up the ladder like I wanted. I was applying for new higher level roles, but I wasn't making progress. So one day I had a conversation with the senior vice president at the organization that I had developed a rapport with, and her name was Linda Darrow. Linda was a real gem. I said, Linda, what does it take to move up here? I'm getting really frustrated, like working hard, good performance reviews. Like, what does it take? And Linda asked me several good questions, like, well, what do you want to do? What do you not want to do, right? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And not like in an interviewee way, but in a like make you think about it kind of way, right? So I had this really great conversation with Linda, and Linda, just a couple of days later, came back to my cube and said, hey, go down to the end of the hall, find an office with the plaque named Jace Dawson. He wants to talk to you about something that is coming open on his team pretty soon. I thought, man, this is a pretty different experience than I've had just applying for roles on my own, right? I better go talk to this guy. So I went and found Mr. Dawson. He would become my next boss and the person that would open doors into the world of data and analytics for me. And I can guarantee you guys that I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be at Nike today without the impact that mentors have had. You would be fair to say, like, this is a data and analytics club. Like, I came to learn about data and analytics. Why are we talking about mentors, right? And that's fair. But the reason that I'm covering it here is I feel like it's absolutely imperative to have a mentor when you enter the workforce in a data and analytics role. A lot of the times, organizational data will have a layer of complexity, a layer of like internal jargon, nuances that are really hard to navigate through if you don't have somebody that you can bounce your thoughts or ideas off of. Data is not always supernaturally intuitive. And on the more nefarious side, data can be used, even when the data is accurate, can be used to mislead an audience, right? Or tell a biased story. Really cool book that I read earlier in my career by a guy named Daryl Huff. This book's a little old school, but Daryl points out several ways that statistics can be used to mislead an audience, right? And I want to look at a few of those with you guys today. So in these two charts, we're seeing the exact same data. This is the exact same data, but it looks really, really different. Can somebody point out why these two charts are different? Hand, quiet bunch. Look at the axes. The chart on the left, the axis starts at 3.14, on the right starts at 0%. This book tells us we should always be wary. Well, it's not a hard and fast rule that we always have to set the axis to 0. When an axis doesn't start at 0, we should be pretty wary, right? Let's look at a real world example of this, right? In this chart published in 2012, this shows the growth of welfare from 2009 through 2011. You can see here, the axis starts at 94 million. We already talked about the axis that may be misleading or something that we need to be a little bit wary of. Can anyone point out maybe something else that may be misleading about this viz, that may be guiding the reader to a certain conclusion. You all have probably heard the expression seeing red, right? When we use the color red, we automatically start to invoke these emotions of aggression or even anger or frustration, right? Something else that you could potentially pick on with this viz is the title. Over 100 million people, what a huge, big number, right? Very subtle things that can be used to mislead the audience. So let's look at the exact same data a little bit differently. So the exact same data, we've set our axis to 0. And we see not a bar that's 3 times the size of the bar in 2009. The growth looks much flatter. We've also added a little bit more context in here with the orange line. The orange line shows welfare recipients as a % of the total population. Now, 08, 09, we were coming out of one of the biggest recessions that we've ever seen in the history of our country, right? So with that context and looking at this, the average user might walk away with this thinking, well, welfare recipient growth is tracking pretty closely with the growth of population, right? It's a pretty different conclusion that one might walk away with. Let's take a look at another one. This one published in 2014 by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Wow, look what happened when we implemented the Stand Your Ground law. Pretty big impact here, right? Well, our natural intuition tells us that when we look at a vertical axis, data should increase. The value should increase as we move up the axis, right? It's just natural intuition. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement has flipped the script on us, and the data is actually decreasing. The value is decreasing as we move up the axis. So if we look at this chart, same data, more in line with our natural intuition, the average reader that isn't on their game in terms of navigating through misleading numbers would probably walk away with a very different conclusion. Finding your mentors, if you're entering the field of data and analytics, is absolutely imperative to make sure you aren't misled by accurate data. So I want to give you guys a quick playbook on how to go find your mentors. I know that this can be a little bit intimidating when you're young in your career. The first thing you're going to do is identify your mentorship needs. In my case, I wanted a new job. Maybe you want to get better at a certain aspect of your job. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. Think about what it is that you need. Next thing you're going to do is write down 3 names. These are people that have maybe held the role that you're vying for or are experts at the skill that you're trying to develop. Write down at least 3 names. The next step is building your elevator pitch. This is a 30-second to 1-minute pitch around what it is you're looking for, why you think that this person is a good candidate to be your mentor, and you're going to set mutual expectations around time commitment and what success looks like. Right? Next thing, you're going to have to get out there and ask people. This can be the hardest part. Ask people. Now, keep in mind that mentors are most likely the busiest people that you'll encounter day to day, right? They're really busy people. So don't get discouraged if they say no. It's okay. You wrote at least 3 names down. So just go to the next one on your list, right? All right. So we have our mentors in place. The next switch that I discovered is that you really need to embrace data and analytics tooling and technology, right? So in this section, we'll take a quick look at some legacy, old school BI reporting platforms that you guys will likely encounter. We'll look at some more modern data viz platforms, and then we'll talk a bit about self-service analytics and what that means. Now, I know some of you here are computer science majors, right? I love SQL too. I can understand data relationships, right? Just give me the freaking DB credentials and let me go, right? The problem is that often in the business world, this stuff is kept under lock and key, right? We want our transactional systems to be healthy, so no transactions drop. And IT departments are not too keen to let reporting and analytics workload drop their database, right? So in most cases, SQL will be kept under lock and key. And no matter how proficient you are with SQL or writing code, I guarantee you can go faster by using BI and analytics tools. Now, a couple of the stalwarts that you might encounter, you may have already encountered, are Crystal Reports and SAP Business Objects. Now, these tools are great in the sense that they keep our transactional systems and databases healthy. We don't overload them with our analytics workload. They're great in the sense that they can give users on-demand data and information when they need it. Where these systems start to fall down is in terms of speed to development, right? The backends are pretty complex. If I needed to change the visualization in this report, I usually send a request in. It takes months to get done. It's probably not right. And it's a pretty frustrating development process. Let's say that the chart that you're seeing over to the right is also, for these systems, a more advanced visualization. More of these reports look like what you see on the left, which is just rows and columns of data, where we're not really giving our business insights, we're just giving them information, right? So how do we find good tools? Right. If you guys aren't familiar with Gartner, I recommend that you get acquainted with the Gartner Magic Quadrant. Gartner is a research and consulting firm. And what they'll do is, across a wide variety of verticals, we'll focus on the BI and analytics vertical today. They will evaluate the major players in the game by a standard set of criteria and then score each player into one of these 4 quadrants, right? You got challengers, niche players, leaders, and visionaries. Now, when I'm selecting tools or evaluating tools, I'm focused primarily on the right side of this quadrant, looking at the leaders and the visionaries. Now, the leaders are just what it sounds like. They're the best in class today. These are the best tools and technologies to run analytics and business intelligence for your business today. The visionaries are positioned to disrupt or change the game, right? New features, new functionality, a different way of processing data. Maybe we can process more data faster, but they're in some way positioned to disrupt the game. They're just not quite able to execute it as well as the leaders are yet, right? So I like to invest in tools that are in the leader quadrant and experiment with tools in the visionaries quadrant. Now, there are several tools in each coming with their own pretty hefty price tag. So how do we find the right one? This is a little checklist that I look at whenever we're selecting new tools into the business. I'm not going to bore you too much with this, but some of the keys are, how well does this integrate with our systems, right? Let's say I am running a Microsoft Azure shop where all of our servers are Azure. We're in the cloud. In that case, Microsoft Power BI is going to be pretty hard to beat. Compatibility with those clouds is going to be pretty seamless. You're going to be off to the races really fast. But if I have a multi-cloud environment, maybe some AWS, a little Ollie Cloud, some Azure, something like Tableau or Qlik may serve me a lot better. Of course, data security is pretty imperative when we're evaluating tools. We have to be able to keep our data secure. Also looking at how fast can we develop and deliver those insights. That's another big key when we're selecting tools. All right, so you'll notice that the tools over in the visionaries section as well as the leaders section have this heavy focus on data visualization, right? Data viz helps us really see and understand our data. I believe it's an absolute necessity, not just here for the people that are more visually inclined. I'll try to convince you all of that in a little bit. We also use data to tell stories and make emotional connections with the information in our audience. And again, turning the data and information from rows and columns into real insights that we can use to make decisions. Okay. All right, so a quick video. We'll do a little test. Let's see how well you guys do.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Anyone see it? Yeah. So people got it and everyone got it.
Go!
It's pretty easy to miss something that we're not looking for. Here's another quick one. Sorry.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
Sorry, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
And action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
£26.
All right. So again, it's easy to see something that you're not looking for. If we can miss a moonwalking bear through a basketball game, if we can miss 21 changes in a 1-minute video clip, it's pretty safe to say that picking out things like correlations and relationships in rows and columns of millions of records of data, things like seeing trends over time, frequency of events, it's pretty difficult without a little help, right? Without something that bubbles these things up to the surface for us. This is a data viz that I saw a couple of weeks ago that I thought I would include here just because it's so simple, but it tells such a cool story. What we're looking at here is the political divide in the United States based on what you're seeing here, population density, and then morphing back into land mass, right? And in just a really simple data visualization, we get this story that shows us how different political ideologies are based on where we live in the US. Another cool one that I saw over the past year or so, this one came from Twitter. The red line that you see here are bad reviews on Amazon of Yankee candles where the user said, the candle doesn't smell, right? No smell. Now, if I was the chief scentologist or whatever the heck you call them at Yankee Candle, I would be pretty nervous if I saw this floating around out in the wild, right? Again, correlations, context is everything. If we layer in data from COVID cases in the US, we all know by now, I think that one of the biggest symptoms of COVID is a loss of smell. We see a pretty different story here. And again, if I were that chief scentologist at Yankee Candle Company, I would want to tell this story pretty loud. I'd be screaming this one from the rooftops. So my all-time hero data storyteller is a guy by the name of Hans Rosling. Hans Rosling was a physician from Sweden and an amazing storyteller in terms of healthcare and just a pioneer in terms of data viz storytelling. So I want to show you guys a quick clip of storytelling with Hans Rosling.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health. Life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, $400,000, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, Why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa.
And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner.
Well, what you just seen in the last few minutes is a story of 200 countries shown over 200 years and beyond. It involved plotting of 120,000 numbers. Pretty neat, huh?
Pretty neat. I hope you guys enjoyed a little data storytelling with Hans Rosling. Now, you may have noticed there, Hans has a pretty good amount of resource at his disposal. You noticed the production team. You may have noticed the videographers. It takes a lot of effort to animate data in space. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of budget, right? And we don't always have the luxury of doing that in the business world. Again, speed to insights. So how do we enable self-service? How do we let everybody in our organization be their own Hans Rosling, right? Find their own stories and their own insights. And again, embracing the analytics tooling and technology and advocating for that is, in my opinion, the best way to go. Let's jump into a little live Tableau demo now. For those of you who haven't seen Tableau software before, Tableau is a tool that connects to data and helps us visualize the insights in a really easy to use drag and drop interface. Before we dive into this dashboard, I want to take a quick look at the data set. We're not going to spend much time here. But again, Tableau just will pull in the data, the rows and columns, and then we'll analyze the columns that we pulled in and split them into two categories that you see over here on the right, and dimensions and into measures. You can think of measures as something that you would aggregate or add up, like sales numbers, number of people, for instance, right? Something that we add up. A dimension is a way that we would slice and dice that data. So maybe like by category or by a certain date, right? Those things would be dimensions. Right? So Tableau is going to split our data up into dimensions and measures, and then in a very simple to use drag and drop interface, we're able to see things like a little bit of info about you guys. Now, shout out to Trevor for putting this survey together and getting this data for us today. If you guys responded to the survey, you're part of this data set and this dashboard. So in Tableau, like I mentioned, very easy to just drag and drop, create your data visuals. Maybe I don't like that one. Maybe I want to see it in a heat map. Maybe I like bubbles. Maybe I like something different that I can build, right? We can really easily click and sort. And again, you may be able to write SQL, but you probably wouldn't be able to do all those things in the same amount of time that I just did them. So the typical Tableau development process is people will connect to data. The developer will connect into their data set, build out a series of worksheets that have insights, and then compile those worksheets together on a dashboard. Now, out of the 52 people that responded here, we see that over half of you all are from Oklahoma. 14, the majority, or the biggest category, 14 of you aren't quite sure what you want to do in terms of a position when you graduate. That's cool. 13 of you say that you are interested in data and analytics. Now, Tableau also displays this data, but it can make it really interactive for us. So if I want to learn just about our friends from India here, for example, right? We can click in here and Tableau will filter the rest of the results to show me results just from our friends that are joining us from India. We could also click into the bubbles to drill further down, right? And really get insights into data at low levels of detail very quickly. Now, this dashboard took me approximately 30 minutes total to build and assemble for today. And it takes not a lot of skill sets, right? You might be saying like, hey, you've done this for 10 or 12 years, right? What do I really need to do? What things do I need to work on to get myself ready to be a Tableau developer? And I can tell you, it's not much. So I'm a big advocate, big proponent for data visualization tools. However, in my career, I've seen time and time again, we make these tools available to an organization. We produce insights for others to consume, right? We're making our business more efficient, but yet I see people all the time building things in Tableau and our data viz tools that look just like Excel. And it's pretty demoralizing as a data viz developer, right? Why are we just going back to rows and columns of data? Why aren't we embracing the insights in data visualization? Sometimes it kind of feels like this, right? Like I think I've created something that is super interesting, but everyone else just thinks it's boring or maybe hard to comprehend. And while it can feel like that as a data viz developer sometimes, more often than not, I found that the issue comes down to trust in the data. We talked earlier about those misleading numbers and about numbers that aren't quite intuitive or maybe hard to present, right? You have to remember your colleagues have probably been burned by that, right? We can't expect everybody just to take our insights at face value. It takes effort and work to build trust and to build a data literate organization. We can't just expect them to come because we built this great dashboard. A lot of my work involves creating organizational champions, right, within pockets of a big company like Nike, so they can help us carry the torch from an enterprise level and advocate for data visualization and help build trust within their organizations. And again, ultimately, we want to build an entire organization that's data literate. Tableau has done a really great job at putting together a lot of research and material to support this effort. They call this Tableau Blueprint. Now, over on the left, you see it starts with analytics strategy. And then, in my opinion, the most important step here is getting buy-in from your executive and leadership team. Without that executive leadership buy-in, it's really difficult to make change in an organization. Now, again, there's a 200-page textbook on all of this. If you guys are interested, it's available. I just recommend Googling it. Learn more about the Tableau Blueprint. But this is some material that I use in my everyday work life. We'll take a little bit more of a summarized view here. When I'm looking at creating an organizational champion, building somebody that is data literate, that's ready to carry that torch and advocate for data visualization and analytics within their team, this is kind of how I look at it in 3 categories: reading, writing, and speaking. And what we want to do is move people from the 1-star column over to the 3-star column. Ultimately, we want them not just being able to access and develop a conclusion. We want them to understand what to go do about it, right? Doesn't matter if you guys see an interesting insight, if you can't go fix it or can't act on it, then it's not quite as meaningful. We also want to make sure that our users in the organizational champion role can create their own insights, right? They don't have to wait on a tech team or a special skilled developer to build their own story. They can go do it on their own. And ultimately, we want people to speak about data and speak about insights in a way that can convince executives, convince board of directors to really change the way that companies approach problems. Now, if we do that really, really well, over time, we can start to create an organization that looks a little more like this. And I mentioned, I believe that starting with leadership is super important to the backing and buy-in. We want to find leadership that encourages the use of data and analytics. To do that, we have to have good governed data. We have to have trustable data. That, ideally, we have a data catalog where terms are defined. We see all the time misalignment because one team defines a number, take just a basic number, sales. Here's the sales number for North America for the month, right? Well, another team reports the sales number for North America for the month, and it's a different number. Team one may have subtracted cancellations from the sales, right? Maybe team two didn't. If we don't have that clearly defined data catalog, it can be really difficult for users to actually trust the information that we're presenting. I love when I see experimentation being encouraged among teams. The innovation sprint is a new concept that has been introduced at Nike, where teams are encouraged to take 2 weeks, a quarter, just to build out a new idea. Go pursue something that you're interested in, that you think will make an impact without ever being told by upper management what to do. Right? Experimentation and innovation are encouraged. We have the right tools and infrastructure in place. We're more likely to get to a place of analytics maturity where we're really using our data and using information to make decisions. I mentioned earlier that if we have that right organizational mindset, right, we have the right tools and technology, we can really use data to predict the future and change the world. I want to give you guys just a few examples of things that I've stumbled on over the past few years that I think are really breakthroughs in terms of data and analytics. This one from UCLA, discovering new planets with AI models at rates faster than we could have ever imagined. It's pretty exciting stuff. Accenture Centaur, we're reducing the drug discovery time significantly from 4 to 5 years down to 8 months. Hope some of you CS folks have seen GitHub's Copilot. Have you guys seen that? Super cool AI used to help people write more effective code faster. You guys saw a little bit of the drag and drop interface with Tableau, but softwares like Tableau, Domo, ThoughtSpot are moving away from drag and drop more to a natural language processing and natural language generation model, which just means these tools are going to get easier and easier to use. I am super confident that if you guys get out there and find your mentors, get your mentorship network in place, you embrace the data and analytics tooling and technologies and drive that organizational mindset, build data literate organizations, I have no doubt that you guys will add a ton of things to that list of breakthroughs on your own. And I'm definitely rooting for you all. That's all I've got today. If you guys have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, you can enjoy more chicken nuggets. Trevor?
Got any questions? That's all right. If you really do have a question, you just haven't thought of it yet, or you just don't want to speak in front of a crowd, we're all still here. Tanner's here for the next few minutes. Please just come up, please talk. We're always willing to connect. And if you have any questions about Data Analytics Club, please come up to us. We're always willing to answer.
Thank you all so much for coming out today.